All right, here we are again. Oral history of the patriarch of the Poe family. It is April the 4th, 2020, and we are in the midst of COVID 19, where we are all staying in our homes. This is an amazing experience for all of us across, not just across the nation, the world. And we're here today with the patriarch of the Poe family. And tell us your name.
Booker T. Poe.
All right. And Booker, please tell us today about the Reverend William Poe, who is the so many people descend from William Poe, and he is a legend in Eustis, Florida, and in the Poe family. Tell us what you remember about him. Describe him physically as much as you can remember, and we'll ask you a few questions after that.
Papa was a legend in Eustis and also in the state convention, and he also went to the national convention. But he was very strict, and that's part of the reasons he had so much trouble with his first set of children. And what he said went. And I remember the different ministers coming up to Eustis to speak in the church, and
Daddy,
and
Daddy, look up. Yeah, keep going.
I remember different ministers coming to the
Daddy.
house.
Yeah, look up into the camera.
Coming to the house,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's when I started shining shoes. I'd shine the shoes, and they'd give me maybe 15 or 20 cents. But I think I started shining shoes in. But I learned later from Virginia. He said, if your father lived, you wouldn't go to Nashville, because she went to school in St. Augustine. That was the Baptist church school, and he believed if you were a member of the Baptist church, and a lot of the ministers in those days did the same thing. Your children had to go to St. Augustine, and Virginia went to St. Augustine for the first 2 years. And of course, during that time, a lot of people would drop out and go, because you start teaching after 2 years, and she later got her bachelor's degree. I forgot what school that was, but her mother was the same way. She got her degree, and Mama graduated from Florida A&M after she started teaching. I didn't learn that till later, but Papa was very strict. Now, and Mama was a lot more lenient, and but as long as he lived, she had to do what he said, especially things regarding the church, and so I realized what Virginia had to say was probably true, but I do remember people saying, well, yeah, the only time they closed Bay Street was when this guy's father passed. Papa was a legend,
Mm-hmm.
but you did things his way.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned Bay Street.
That street I was born on.
Yes, I know.
I was born at home.
And that house, was it the first black-owned home on Bay Street?
There was another home on Bay Street. The Lucas home was on Bay Street.
The Lucas.
It was further down.
And Jackie Lucas. The Lucas brothers. Yeah. Albert, Big Boy, and Little Boy.
Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
So were they the first to have a house on Bay Street?
I would say, I can't say they were the first, but I'm saying
both
of our homes were on Bay Street.
And you all were very rare to have those homes on Bay Street.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard you all were the first black, that your father was the first black to buy a home.
That may be true, but I know Little Boy's house was on Bay Street, but
Gotcha.
it was further down.
And Irma Adams, right?
They live behind us.
Yeah, so but they were in that area, right?
They live behind us.
Right.
That house was behind us.
Gotcha. So describe your father physically. Was he a tall man, short? Was he heavy set?
He was kind of heavy set, but he was married several times.
Was he tall?
A little bit.
Average. He was average.
A little bit, maybe a little bit above average. But I remember what he said went. Now, if somebody told me Papa been married 6 times, I would have believed it. But I know Mama wasn't married but 3 times. And of course, a lot of his marriages he split up with, and then he married somebody that had already been married before. One of them was, but he married them, and then
Well, let's go in order. The first wife was Laura, right?
I guess so. I'm not
Yeah,
positive.
yeah. Okay, the first wife, we have the census records.
I think we covered this in the last
Okay,
one.
we covered it in the last one. Okay, let's not do that. So then let's talk about. We got a good feel for your father being strict. We want to just move on to just a couple of other things. Now, we know that you came to Atlanta pretty young, with a vision of working here in the bigger city and taking
The reason
classes at
came
Booker T.
around
Washington.
was because of Spurgeon. After Papa passed, he had to go to Soundstein at first also. After Papa passed, he was, said Mama was more flexible. He moved to Atlanta and he went to Morehouse. I think
He was the youngest, according to cousin Lisa Houston. I don't know which pronunciation, but cousin Lisa says that our Uncle Spurgeon was the youngest graduate of Morehouse ever at the time, and I had not heard that.
Well, he finished.
They said he was the youngest.
He finished at 18. I know that.
So apparently it was known, and we didn't know that, but they know from that side of the family.
I heard say he finished at 18, and he finished high school at 14. And that was one of the reasons when they tried to skip Brian, I unskipped him because I knew some of the problems he had finishing.
So young.
What 18-year-old girl wants to date a 14-year-old boy? And then Gloria had to leave early, a year early too. And she always regretted it, but she had to take the scholarship because her parents were very poor. So she had to take the scholarship, but she always regretted. She had to leave. I mean, she had to leave fifth. I mean, high school a year earlier, and she always figured that she lost something by not finishing that the 12th grade. But she couldn't afford not to take the scholarship.
Now, tell us, you came to Atlanta to attend Booker T. Washington. Tell us about that.
Well, I wanted to do well, and I wanted to finish. I went back. I left. Mama moved to Sarasota. I think after
Papa passed.
3 or 4 years after Papa passed, and I didn't like Sarasota. Outdoor toilets, oh Lord. Had to play basketball on the outside courts. And
let me ask you something. You didn't like Sarasota compared to
Eustis.
Oh.
So Eustis was more
advanced, yeah.
That's interesting
why we thought the Sarasota would have been more advanced?
Well, later on.
Later on, but at the time, interesting.
First, used to have inside. They had a lot of things that were inside that Sarasota didn't have. Sarasota later had a real nice basketball court, but Eustis had things, had better teachers at that time, and they had more things than Sarasota had. Now later on,
Sarasota is now a resort, but for blacks.
After the white folks began to realize that there might be integration of the schools, they began to make a lot of those schools like Sarasota better. Then their Sarasota school was better than Eustis School, but not at first.
Yeah, they said separate but equal, but they not until they were about to get caught. Yeah, I agree.
We didn't even have a good science teacher in Sarasota.
Yeah,
I had a better science teacher in Eustis.
Yeah, interestingly, this is an aside, but I was watching John Lewis. He has a book called March. It's actually a comic book, but it's fabulous. And there's a great show that you can find on PBS where he's in Vermont. And he's actually really funny. And he talks about that separate but equal. And he said, yeah, they would have a rundown bus and they would pass the white students in their nice, shiny buses. And it was definitely not separate.
And the books were handed down to the club people.
Yeah, you had to hand down books.
In the white schools. I mean, everything was unequal, but not the way they told it.
Yeah, they said everything was equal. Yeah,
they were trying to fight integration. They saw that coming.
That's what. Yeah.
And so I didn't like Sarasota. So I didn't like Eustis. Like Sarasota. So I asked to go back to Eustis. Now one of the things that my mother felt much better about Cuba than me, because he wanted to stay in Sarasota, but I wanted to. He said, "Cuba, you want to go back?" I said, "No, I want to stay here." But I wanted to go back to Eustis. and of course I finished the valedictorian in Houston, but I knew I had to work hard to finish the valedictorian because there was a lady coming out of Florida A&M was real strict about typing. You had to type 50 words in order to make a B. And Aunt Lula was my great defender. She said, now, all the schools were together, 1st through 12th. See, Williams is strict. If you want to be valedictorian, you better go up there in Atlanta and take the
Orlando or Atlanta?
Atlanta and take the course. So I was shining shoes in Houston too, but I'd come up to Atlanta
and stay with Spurgeon.
I didn't stay with him, but I stayed. He got me a place to stay.
Who would drive you to Atlanta back then? Cause that's a long
bus. You take the bus.
Bus. Okay.
Greyhound, right?
Catch the buses.
Catch the bus. Okay.
Through the colored entrance, of course.
You know,
okay.
Catch the buses to work,
Gotcha.
and take the buses to what's the black
Yeah,
school name?
they rode the buses big time back then.
Okay.
And so
And trains.
sure enough, right across from Morehouse, that was you heard of Yason Milton? Remember that name, Yason Milton?
Right.
That was a typing place right above. I took the typing and I kept it quiet. I went back and I typed the 50 words better than everybody else. And that's how I managed to get a B when everybody else was getting a C. So
did anybody get A's?
no, not at first. And later on, somebody got an A. I don't remember anybody getting an A in that course.
See, that's how they did it. Y'all did it right. These days, my students demand an A practically, but that's another conversation. Okay, and you also took science classes at Booker T. Washington, right?
Yep, I took after I was valedictorian. I knew I didn't have. Okay, let me say this. There were favorites in Eustis. There was a fellow, Prop Painter was the principal, and he loved Joseph Nunn. He could speak well, and I remember he could sing, and they always pushed him, and so he was gonna be a doctor, and so he finished ahead of me. And I remember Prop Painter went up to Tallahassee, Florida A&M, and I asked about Joseph. He was doing real well. Now, I didn't want to go for some reason. I didn't want to go to Florida A&M because everybody else was going to Florida A&M. So Dr. Gore was the commencement speaker, and I was getting off, coming from work from the barber shop, and they asked me, did I know where the Poe family lived? Well, that was where I was born, at home. So I showed them where it was. And they spoke about this fellow that was so nice and showed them the way to the Poe family, to where they lived. I don't think they said the Poe family then. And Aunt Lula knew that I had shown Dr. Gore and his wife. They had a driver to my home. I didn't go up there with them. I just showed where it was. And boy, when Dr. Gore told them the painting that, they decided that was Joseph that had to do that. And I didn't want to go to Florida A&M no way. But anyway, he ended up getting a typing scholarship. And that didn't make me no different, but folks say, Joseph got Booker's scholarship. So anyway, he came up and said, well now, after you directed the Gore family, I directed them. I said, what I said to myself,